We find ourselves today in some challenging times. I have some comments and some very pertinent questions and a few answers. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. One of the things that we fear about a lockdown is that, at least as far as I'm concerned, a lockdown can only come out four ways. You come out either a monk, a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk. So you want to choose wisely. And I have another question for you. You know, with all of this civil unrest going on, you know, the supermarket takes care of us. They have a time frame when seniors can go in. Does anyone know if there's a special looting hour for seniors? I haven't heard that there is. Now, here's a question I have that I see at the grocery store. They're encouraging people to not pay with cash and to use their cards. So instead of touching the plastic buttons like everybody else, they put plastic wrap over the buttons. And I touched that. Does that make it more safe that there's plastic wrap over the buttons than I'm touching the same thing that everybody else touches? I'm a bit confused. A study finds that parents right now, and you know, when I work with Eli, this is an important factor. I can go over the math with him. You know, back when he was in the, 4th and 5th grade, multiplication, division, I'm pretty good at that stuff. You know, but now he's, the math is a bit more complicated. And a study finds that parents can do just about 1/3 of their kids' math, but they struggle with the other 3/4. Hello? I'm a bit confused. Okay, let's talk about a few of the phrases and words that have been prevalent in our society during these times that we are all being challenged. First thing is the new normal. Perhaps every leader, news outlet, commercial, and celebrity doesn't really need to use that phrase quite so often. The phrase new normal itself is actually an oxymoron. It's typically used to indicate a life event that is out of the ordinary and has long-lasting or permanent impact on somebody's day-to-day routine. Like when my wife and I had Eli as a baby. That changed our lives forever. It was a permanent change. It became the new normal. But using the phrase to describe efforts to fight a global pandemic implies a sense of permanence that makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. And this may be one time when it's better to challenge yourselves and find a new phrase rather than relying on one we already know. Now, I've looked at thesaurus.com to kind of help me out in this area with this and a few others that I'm going to share with you. So let me come up with a couple of different things you can say. Instead of the new normal, how about if we say strange routine, or unusual standard, or unfamiliar order? These all seem to better capture the inherent strangeness of our time. Now, it's incredible how quickly the term social distancing went from being a phrase that few people have even heard of, and now it's repeated all the time on social media, the news, in conversations, a zillion times a day. It's ubiquitous. You may want to get a dictionary for that. And it started to get on my nerves, and I'm sure a lot of other people, either because you're sick of hearing it and the same instructions over and over and over again, because the phrase itself invokes a sense of loneliness and isolation. Social distancing is part of the recommendations provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Who are they? Have you heard people talking about the CDC? That's what the CDC stands for. So the phrase ain't likely going anyplace real soon. But synonyms that you can live with to help to look at this in a different way are some of the ones that I used to hear myself, which was, sweetheart, we need to have a civil separation, a conscious uncoupling, a communal expansion, a collective absence, and sociable extension. Okay. Another word that we hear all the time is unprecedented. After all, when you're talking about unprecedented, I'm tired of that one too. What are some words we can use? How about bizarre, unparalleled, extraordinary, novel, unheard of, or singular. We are in uncertain times. Oh, there's another one, the word uncertain. We're uncertain of the outcomes. And when you don't know what's going to happen, that creates a bit of anxiety, doesn't it? You're not alone if you're feeling uncertain. And you aren't alone if you'd rather not hear that word ever again. Just like unprecedented, the word uncertain has options that we can use. How about ambiguous, dubious, erratic, precarious, questionable, speculative, and inconstant? Which brings us to trying times. The repeated utterance of the phrase trying times is starting to try people's patience. Trying is a catch-all term for difficult things that test our resilience. What we describe as trying can be described as arduous, demanding, stressful, wearisome, taxing, vexing, and just plain hard. These so-called trying times are a hard moment, a vexing interval, or an arduous stage. It's okay to say that. Now here's one of my favorites, and this one was uttered by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada. And he was trending in a very bad way for coining this phrase and horrified just about everybody that heard it. In a public service announcement about the importance of wearing masks to prevent the spread of the illness, Trudeau said, the use of masks can prevent people from, quote, breathing or speaking moistly. Now he immediately regretted the turn of that phrase and said, ugh, now there's a terrible image, unquote. We agree, Mr. Prime Minister, as did the many people who told us that this phrase was the one that they most wanted to stop hearing. Unfortunately, most of the synonyms for moist are equally horrifying, like damp, soggy, drippy, clammy, drizzly, oozy. We'll take a page from the CDC and say that cloth face coverings are worn to prevent the spread of virus from the wearer to others. No moist adjectives are really necessary. How about the toilet paper shortage? Now this may be an instance where people are more tired of the occurrence than the actual words that we use to describe it. Nevertheless, a number of people told us that toilet paper shortage is the #1 most hated phrase on their list. We can't supply you with extra TP, but we can tell you that a toilet paper shortage can also be called a toilet roll deficit, a TP shortfall, and a toilet tissue scarcity. Or maybe you can go with a phrase that's just absolutely begging for a hashtag, and that would be #TP fail. All right, that brings us to essential workers. Who are essential workers? Like healthcare workers, grocery store, sanitation, first responders, transportation, and many others that are out there in the front lines during this pandemic. And the word essential has still become a point of contention for many people. And why are we so sick of it? Perhaps because it lacks the specificity that's needed. In many cases, the word essential doesn't really capture the importance of these roles in the same ways as synonyms like crucial or indispensable and necessary would. It also leaves out an important element. Another word for essential is required. Many workers are doing risky jobs out of necessity because the ability to social distance is a luxury afforded to those who have the means, a roof over their heads, and flexible work. Essential is not always the clearest way that you can express that. Now, there's a whole bunch more of phrases, and I'm going to cover them the next time we get together. But once again, I do want to give credit to thesaurus.com for the tremendous amount of help I had, which is another way of saying I stole a lot of their material and read it to you. But my point, and I sprinkled in a few of my own whimsical comments, this is a very serious scenario, and it's not made to be, you're not supposed to make light of it. But, we're actually living life, and you can't be somebody all the time that's, and you've got to take a look at things, and you've got to live. not merely exist. So forgive me if I offended anybody with a little bit of humor on some of these things. It is a very serious time. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, how about my phrase, let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.